We do not allow Iran to enrich uranium. That's an outrageous claim.
Amid escalating tensions in the Middle East over a possible Israeli attack on Iran's nuclear sites, Tehran has issued a chilling warning. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said the U.S. would bear legal responsibility for any Israeli military action. The warning came after a CNN report suggested Israel may be preparing to target Iranian nuclear sites. Araghchi said Iran would take special measures to protect nuclear material and inform the IAEA if threats persist. He also warned the U.S. not to push for a complete end to uranium enrichment, calling such demands unacceptable. In a televised interview, he said no nuclear deal would happen if the U.S. insists Iran stop all enrichment activities.
What purpose is it being held? The impact of this provincial diplomacy. Let me tell you that one of the programs I have for the provincial parliament, the representatives of parliament in each province, these individuals act as the arms of foreign policy, the arms of the ministry. As I mentioned, the JCPOA is no longer effective. Of course, the JCPOA is not dead yet. It still exists, but it cannot be revived. And even if it is revived, it will no longer benefit us in the same way. Our foreign relations, especially with neighboring countries, are much easier through provincial relations. We will not give up our rights. Our nuclear program must also continue, including enrichment. But we are still ready to take confidence-building measures and adopt transparency measures, more monitoring. Since we are confident in the peaceful nature of our nuclear program, we have no fundamental problem with increased monitoring and greater transparency, unless they want to impose things that go against established norms.
According to what exists in the NPT, Article 3 of the International Atomic Energy Agency, the Statute of Sustainable Regime.
As they themselves have said in their interviews and statements, they fundamentally do not believe in enrichment in Iran and believe that enrichment should be completely stopped. If this is truly their goal, then there will be no agreement. I state this very clearly. If they want to take away the Iranian people's right to the peaceful use of nuclear energy from us, we will by no means reach an agreement.
It is located in Shiraz. At this conference, the ambassadors...
But if their goal is, as they have repeatedly said, and as the President of the United States has also repeated many times, their goal is to make sure that Iran does not move toward nuclear weapons. Why is this goal achievable? Because we fundamentally are not pursuing nuclear weapons.
In the neighboring region, that is in fact the Persian Gulf region and Iraq.
If the Islamic Republic of Iran had wanted to pursue nuclear weapons, it would have done so by now. I want to make this clear. If we had intended to build nuclear weapons, we would have done it by now, because we have the capability, but we do not have the will.
If the negotiations do not result in an agreement...
This is not a substitute in any way for our own enrichment inside Iran.
Meaning it will not stop that?
Yes, for us, enrichment inside Iranian territory is a principle. For example, the idea of forming a consortium, we could partner with a number of countries. In itself, that's not a bad thing. But if they say this should be a substitute, that's not possible. Unless, again, solutions are found so that enrichment inside Iranian territory continues in some form or another. Other ideas, such as the consortium, are definitely worth considering as well.
Meanwhile, Iran's elite Revolutionary Guards also issued a separate threat, vowing a devastating response to any Israeli attack. They accused Israel of misjudging Iran's military readiness and popular support in case of war. An advisor to Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei recently said that Tehran may stop cooperating with the IAEA if provoked, as per reports. Notably, officials in Israel, including Prime Minister Netanyahu, have long threatened to strike Iran's nuclear sites. Though Israel hasn't confirmed any plans, U.S. intelligence reportedly points to possible Israeli preparations. Iran's statement came ahead of Washington and Tehran's indirect nuclear talks in Rome, their fifth round, amid deep mistrust as Trump's administration's push for a new nuclear deal with Iran through diplomatic channels. At the core of the talks is uranium enrichment. Tehran insists that it's for peaceful use, but the West fears weapons potential. Trump has publicly threatened military action against Iran if his administration's efforts to negotiate a new nuclear deal to limit or eliminate Tehran's nuclear program fail.
While the Arab states have focused on becoming pillars of regional stability and world commerce, Iran's leaders have focused on stealing their people's wealth to fund terror and bloodshed abroad. Most tragic of all, they have dragged down an entire region with them. Countless lives were lost in the Iranian effort to maintain a crumbling regime in Syria. Look at what happened with Syria. In Lebanon, their Hezbollah proxies have pillaged the hopes of a nation whose capital, Beirut, was once called the Paris of the Middle East. Can you imagine? All of this misery and so much more was entirely avoidable, absolutely avoidable. And Mohammed knew that. He knew that. Smart people knew that. If only the Iranian regime had focused on building their nation up instead of tearing the region down. Yet I'm here today not merely to condemn the past chaos of Iran's leaders, but to offer them a new path and a much better path toward a far better and more hopeful future. As I've shown repeatedly, I am willing to end past conflicts and forge new partnerships for a better and more stable world, even if our differences may be very profound, which obviously they are in the case of Iran. I have never believed in having permanent enemies. I am different than a lot of people think. I don't like permanent enemies, but sometimes you need enemies to do the job, and you have to do it right. Enemies get you motivated. In fact, some of the closest friends of the United States of America are nations we fought wars against in generations past, and now they're our friends and our allies. I want to make a deal with Iran. If I can make a deal with Iran, I'll be very happy if we're going to make your region and the world a safer place. But if Iran's leadership rejects this olive branch and continues to attack their neighbors, then we will have no choice but to inflict massive, maximum pressure, drive Iranian oil exports to zero, like I did before. If you know that, they were a virtually bankrupt country because of what I did. They had no money for terror, they had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, and take all action required to stop the regime from ever having a nuclear weapon. Iran will never have a nuclear weapon.
However, on May 20th, Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei voiced doubt on the success of nuclear talks, calling U.S. demands to halt uranium enrichment excessive and outrageous.
The negotiations were indirect. It was during his time as well, just like it is now. Of course, without any result. Now, we're not sure if it will lead to a result. We don't know what will happen. What is it that they're insisting on enrichment for? The American side, which enters these indirect negotiations, they start talking, they hold discussions. They try either to do it or not to do it. We do not allow Iran to enrich uranium. That's an outrageous claim. No one is waiting for anyone's permission. For the first interview during the presidency,